There you go.
I better do the slideshow, hadn't I? Which is probably better. Borodar, good morning. My name is Penny Muir. I work for the University, Hywel Dda University Health Board as a project support manager for carers. And I'm just going to be taking you through some slides this morning around these carers. Just give you a few objectives of what the session will be. We're going to be able to identify who are carers and some of the issues that they face, understand some key statistics, understand a little bit around a GP surgery carer registration and referral form that you may well be able to utilise when you're delivering prescriptions, etc. to families. Have a little bit of an information about the carers service within Pembrokeshire, and hopefully you'll be able to take some of this forward in your day-to-day role. So just wanted to really reiterate who I'm talking about today. A carer is someone who looks after a relative, friend or neighbour who is ill, frail, disabled, has a mental health concern or problematic substance use, and could not really help manage without that help. We've also got young carers, so somebody under the age of 18. But all of this care is that they provide it unpaid. And we just wanted to really reiterate who we're talking about today around carers, because through the pandemic we were clapping for carers, but actually we were clapping for key workers. So we just wanted to reiterate who we are talking about today. A few statistics just to really strengthen what I'm talking about. In the Hywel Dda Health Board region, there is almost 50,000 of these unpaid carers, but that's quite an old figure. It was based on the 2011 census. So of course, we're just waiting for some more up-to-date figures of this year's census. We've also got young carers, young adult carers, and you can see the ages there. And young carers can go right down to the age of 4 or 5, which is quite alarming. 96% of the care in the community is actually provided by these unpaid carers. I guess through the pandemic that may well have changed. It's probably a lot higher because obviously a lot of care services were shut. And of course these unpaid carers really do save the government a huge amount of money, and £8.1 billion per year. So we really do need to have these carers continuing to do their caring role. Few issues and impacts really. One biggie is that carers don't see themselves as a carer. You know, they're a husband or a wife, brother or sister, son or daughter, friend, next door neighbour maybe. But they really don't see themselves as a carer. So it's really people like yourselves listening to this recording that, you know, you can have these conversations. You may well be a carer yourself, or you know somebody in your family or where you work. 84% of these carers were not prepared for the impact of caring had on their health and well-being. And of course, if their health and well-being is compromised, then there's 2 people that will need to access services, or maybe 3 or 4, depending on the family situation. Some carers also have a difficulty in holding down a job. They don't again see themselves as a carer because they're working, and they might be working full-time or part-time. And that's quite difficult to juggle and to go home and start to do that caring role. As you can see there, some provide 24/7 care, and I guess that's been quite prolific during the pandemic with lots of care services being shut. And then of course we've got slightly different issues for young carers and young adult carers around their schooling, either from an attendance point of view or attainment of grades. And of course, if they've been homeschooling during the pandemic and trying to care, that must be quite tough on a young person. And that potentially will have a long-term effect as they grow older. Really, the future of caring, we don't know what's going to happen, but through statistics and things like that, better health care means people are living longer, more people with long-term conditions living in the community. And that's where pharmacies come into their own of this. And also there's going to be an increase of numbers of carers, and as you can see, There's an estimate there done by Carers UK. We do have something within the county that delivery drivers or pharmacies can actually assist. And we actually have a registration and referral form, or we've encouraged carers to register themselves as such at their GP surgery, but also to consider a referral to the county's carers information and support service, which I'll talk about in a moment. Of course, you can also refer people into the other presentations today, the community connectors, care and repair, anybody like that, the Alzheimer's Society, depending on the situation. But we have a simple form here that can be downloaded or completed online. And there's some really good benefits of having that referral, which I'll show you a little later. But just give you a lowdown of what the Pembrokeshire Carers Service is in Pembrokeshire. It's run by Haval Crossroads, which is part now of Advariad Recovery. And these people are commissioned to provide this information and support services by the local authority and the health board. They have several aspects linked to their service. They have an information service. Hopefully you'll have leaflets as a result of this session. There is an emergency backup scheme. There's a card which also doubles up as a recognition card. So the emergency is if that carer was in a car accident and would have a card on their person, the emergency services can look at that thinking, right, okay, this person has got somebody at home that needs some attention. The recognition card is really around having discounts maybe, and there's also a link into the leisure centres within Pembrokeshire, and they can get a reduction. There is a drop-in centre in Haverfordwest. Of course, that's been closed, but I do understand it's reopened, so carers can drop in and have a chat with staff or pick up leaflets. And they also run a number of different events. Obviously, this has been hampered by the pandemic. But usually there are support groups, walks. They link in with the community connectors to organise carer walks, especially around areas like Carers Week and Carers Rights Day. They also have a carers outreach service, so that there's a few personnel recruited specifically to really have a chat with that individual carer to find out what their needs are, what their circumstances are, and they can really then help and support. They can help that carer access maybe a grant, a small amount of money that may be utilised to buy a washing machine, for example, if theirs has broken down and they really need to keep the bed linen clean. They have community and carer support groups, mentioned that briefly. Again, they have started up and running these around the county. They also support anybody that works and also to have access to training if they need some training for their caring role. Also advise around what those rights are for that carer. In particular, carers have an entitlement to a carer's needs assessment by social services, so they can actually advise the carer what that entails. And of course, they can start to refer and signpost to more specialist services. There's a few there on the screen, but you know, they can refer them to anybody really around the county. And they also produce little case studies, certainly for the commissioners, about the activities and the difference that they are making to that carer's lives. Also touch on young carers. Action for Children provides the Pembrokeshire Young Carer Service. They have two services here, one for young carers between the age of 8 and 18, and then young adult carers between 18 and 25. They do run an information service. They run activities for the carers, depending on what they want to do, and they actually work alongside other individuals and provide that particular support for that young person and work alongside schools. Just going to give you a little story about Gareth. This is a real situation, a real story, but highly edited, who came into PKIS, as we call them, and he is a committed full-time carer for both his son and his mother. His son has physical and learning disabilities and needs a high level of care 24/7. Gareth's mum lives a short distance away and has lived alone since his father moved into residential care. Mum's has been diagnosed with dementia. He recognised that his caring roles are taking their toll on his own well-being, particularly his emotional and physical health, and he's really concerned that if that continues to function at that pace, he may well become unwell and won't be able to care for either son or mum. So on the right hand side, we've got the intervention. He was referred to the Carer Support Service, and an outreach worker established that Gareth's mum does have some level of support from social services. However, it was decided they really needed some support for Gareth for caring for his son. The outcome here has regular telephone support from the outreach worker, which he finds beneficial. Mum now has some short-term replacement care, allowing Gareth to have some respite of his own. And then Gareth was also recommended to attend a course called Introduction to Looking After Me, which is specifically written for carers. And there's a little speech bubble there, really. This is Gareth saying, talking to the outreach worker has been so helpful. Good to talk openly and not worry about what someone else is thinking. So you can see that short intervention has made a difference to Gareth. Just tell you a little bit about a young carer story as well. Now, Chloe, she's 11, lives with her mum and dad and her brother who has ASD and epilepsy. She loves her brother, but really struggles when he kicks off and finds his seizures really scary. This has actually impacted on her general emotional well-being, and is quite sensitive and gets upset. She lets her brother get his own way at home because it's easier, but obviously she feels that her own opinions and choices don't matter as much as his. So she's actually quite on the emotional scale. So she was referred to the Young Carer Service and has regular one-to-one support with a support worker, certainly around her emotions. She's learned various techniques about expressing negative emotions in a safe way rather than just bottling them up. And Chloe also has joined the Young Carer Club to meet other young people with brothers and sisters just like hers, so she feels less alone. The outcome is that she is doing a lot better as a result of the support. She's more accepting of her brother's condition. Whilst it's still upsetting for her, she bounces back a lot quicker. Mum has fed back that she is using emotional techniques independently now, and she's just started secondary school and has adapted really well. So you can see just by those interventions, it does make a difference. That's all from me. There's my details there, an email address, and I've also put in the Pembrokeshire Carers Service. But hopefully you'll be able to have leaflets as well. The end.